Humanity was never meant to be part of the Galactic Council. The ancient races had ruled the stars for millennia, their politics woven in layers of deceit and silent wars fought in the shadows. When humans arrived, they were seen as little more than a curiosity, primitive, short-lived, yet strangely resilient. They were given a seat, but not respect. The Council expected them to fall in line, to accept their role as junior partners in the grand order of the galaxy. They were wrong. In less than a century, humanity reshaped everything. Their advancements in warfare, strategy, and industry outpaced species that had been spacefaring for thousands of years. They turned barren moons into thriving colonies, transformed outdated council ships into near-invincible dreadnoughts, and, most importantly, showed no fear. They fought where others would retreat. They rebuilt where others would surrender. And when war came, it was humanity's soldiers who stood on the front lines, bleeding for a galaxy that would never acknowledge their sacrifice. That was the beginning of the resentment. The Council's ruling species had always seen themselves as superior, as the rightful shepherds of civilization. Humanity's rise was a stain on their pride, a reminder that strength was not inherited, but earned. And so, in whispered meetings and secret treaties, they plotted. They spoke of balance, of keeping the natural order intact. They convinced themselves that humanity was a threat, not because of any crime committed, but because they had become too strong. The betrayal came without warning. One moment, humanity was a trusted member of the Council. The next, they were branded as outlaws, as aggressors plotting galactic domination. The Council's forces, fleets that humanity had helped modernize, turned on them. Human colonies, entire worlds, were bombarded into ruin. Their allies, those who had once sworn loyalty, stood by in silence, unwilling to defy the Council's decree. The worst blow came when the Council allied itself with the Ellerin Swarm, an ancient enemy humanity had nearly driven to extinction. The Swarm had been caged, held back only by human fleets. Now, the Council had set them free. They poured across human space, devouring everything in their path. No planet was spared, no surrender was accepted. The Council believed it was a final solution, a way to erase humanity without taking direct responsibility. Earth fell within days. The homeworld, the birthplace of the most defiant species the galaxy had ever known, was reduced to fire and ash. The last transmission spoke of orbital defenses being overwhelmed, of cities collapsing under unrelenting bombardment. Then silence. The Council declared victory. The Swarm moved on, and humanity, it seemed, was no more. But the Council had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity's will to survive. A small fleet, barely a fraction of what it had once been, escaped the slaughter. They vanished into the darkest parts of the galaxy, into the void where no Council ship dared follow. These were not diplomats, not politicians clinging to dying embers of an empire. They were soldiers, engineers, and survivors bound by a singular purpose: to return. The Council celebrated too soon. They saw humanity's destruction as proof of their wisdom, a necessary purge to preserve their dominion. What they failed to see was a storm they had unleashed. Humanity had never been stronger than when forced into a corner. They did not surrender. They did not forget. And, above all, they did not forgive. The remnants of fallen species began their silent work. In exile, they did not rebuild what was lost. They created something new, something unstoppable. And one day, when the time was right, they would come back, not to beg, not to negotiate, but to issue a single warning. Flee. In the cold abyss of space, where even light feared to tread, humanity endured. What remained of their fleets drifted through the void, wounded but not broken. They did not mourn. There was no time for grief. Every moment spent looking back was a moment stolen from the future. And so, they disappeared, not into oblivion, but into the unknown, where no Council fleet would dare to follow. The Council believed the war was over, that humanity had been purged, erased from the annals of history. But the survivors knew better. Survival was not enough. Existence alone was a slow death. They needed to evolve, to adapt, to become something greater than what they once were. The galaxy had turned against them, so they would turn the galaxy itself into their weapon. They sought refuge in the most hostile places imaginable. Starless voids, gravity wells of dying suns, nebulae so thick with radiation that even the most advanced sensors would read nothing but silence. They colonized drifting husks of ancient battle stations, reforging dead technology into something new. Their ships became ghosts, wrapped in cloaking fields no council engineer could comprehend. They abandoned traditional fleet formations, instead using tactics that blurred the line between strategy and myth. Every ship that fled Earth carried its own piece of humanity's rebirth. Scientists worked in hidden stations, perfecting technologies the Council had long forbidden. Artificial intelligence advanced beyond limits once thought impossible. Weapons designed in exile defied conventional physics. Dark matter projectiles, quantum interference arrays, and self-replicating war drones that could consume enemy fleets from the inside. The old ways of war were dead. The Council would never see the new ones coming. Infiltration became an art. Humanity's spies moved through Council space unseen, gathering intelligence, planting seeds of chaos. They hacked into planetary networks, rewriting laws, collapsing economies from the inside. They whispered dissent into the ears of the oppressed, stoking the flames of rebellion. The Council was vast, but it was fragile, built on control, on the illusion of absolute power. Humanity had no need to break it with brute force. It only needed a push. And so, the push began. Supply convoys vanished in the dead of space. Defense grids failed without warning, leaving entire worlds exposed. The Council's most secure fortresses found themselves locked out of their own systems, unable to fire a single shot as they were torn apart from within. Every species that had stood idle during humanity's fall now watched in growing terror. The ghosts of the past had returned, not as victims, but as executioners. Rumors spread faster than the Council could suppress them. The humans were still alive. The swarm had not finished the job. But these were not the same humans who had once sat at the Council's table, arguing over diplomacy and trade routes. These were something else. Something evolved. Something unknowable. The Council dismissed the warnings at first. It was impossible, they said. The war had ended. Humanity was gone. Then an entire fleet disappeared. Not destroyed, not disabled, simply gone. One moment, it stood as the pride of the Council's military might. The next, there was nothing but empty space. No distress signals, no wreckage, no survivors. It was as if it had never existed. Panic began to spread. The Council convened emergency meetings, debating strategies, crafting explanations. But deep down, every leader knew the truth. Humanity had returned, and they were watching. The silence was worse than any battle. It was the waiting, the knowing that something was coming but never knowing when. Entire planets fortified themselves, fearing attacks that had not yet come. Fleets mobilized against an enemy that left no trace. The Council had ruled through fear for so long, never realizing what it felt like to be on the other side. Then the message came. A simple transmission broadcast across every Council world, overriding every security system in place. A single voice, cold and unrecognizable, speaking in flawless galactic common. You betrayed us. We warned you. Now you have one chance. Flee. The message spread like wildfire. Every Council world, every military outpost, every ruling species received the same transmission at the same time. It was not a declaration of war. It was not a demand. It was a warning. The Council dismissed it as an elaborate hoax, a trick played by dissidents trying to stir unrest. But the silence that followed was deafening. No fleet stepped forward to claim responsibility. No rebellion admitted to the act. And the few intelligence officers brave enough to investigate found only one answer, whispered in the darkest corners of space. The humans had returned. Then the first strike came. It wasn't an invasion. It wasn't a battle. It was something worse. A crucial supply hub, the lifeline of the Council's war machine, ceased to exist overnight. No explosion, no distress calls. Satellites showed that one moment it was there, the next, only drifting embers remained. The entire sector went dark. Hundreds of ships, thousands of personnel, gone, as if they had never been. Panic set in. The council convened an emergency session, blaming rogue factions, internal sabotage, anything but the truth staring them in the face. But then, the attacks multiplied. Weapons depots spontaneously detonated in systems light years apart. Cyber warfare crippled planetary economies, plunging once prosperous worlds into famine and anarchy. Council battleships, vessels once thought indestructible, were found adrift, their crews missing, their data cores wiped clean. Not a single shot had been fired, yet the Council was already losing. The High Command scrambled to retaliate, but they had no target. Humanity wasn't an empire anymore. There were no borders, no homeworlds, no fleet standing in formation. The enemy was everywhere and nowhere. They had become shadows, ghosts in the dark, and their warning still echoed across the stars. Flee. The Council refused. Arrogance was their nature. They doubled their efforts, increasing patrols, fortifying planets, tightening their grip on the systems under their rule. They told themselves it was nothing but an insurgency, that the threat was exaggerated, that the situation was under control. Then, the Ellerin swarm turned on them. The creatures had been the Council's greatest weapon against humanity, unleashed like rabid beasts to finish what their fleets could not. But the swarm was not an ally. It was a force of destruction, a tide that consumed without remorse. And without humanity to hold them back, they had spread further than anyone had realized. Now, with the Council weakened, they struck. The first reports were ignored. Another rogue fleet, another insignificant uprising. The usual lies politicians told themselves. Then, the casualty numbers arrived. Entire sectors overrun in days. Worlds lost before a single distress beacon could be activated. The swarm was no longer a contained threat. It was everywhere, feasting on the remains of a dying empire. And with every world it consumed, it grew stronger. The Council had planned for many things. They had planned for war, for insurrection, for rebellion. They had never planned for extinction. In desperation, they turned to the only species that had ever truly fought the swarm and lived. They turned to humanity. But humanity did not answer. Not yet, because this was never about justice. It was never about peace. This was about the lesson. The Council had believed itself untouchable, invincible, destined to rule forever. Now, its fleets were crippled. Its leaders were hunted. Its once loyal worlds whispered defection. And still, the enemy they betrayed did not come to conquer. They came only to watch. To let the Council feel for the first time what was to be afraid. And when the moment was right, they would speak once more. One last warning. Flee. The Council's high command gathered in their most fortified stronghold, a station built at the heart of a dying star, protected by fleets that once symbolized absolute control. It was here they made their final stand, clinging to the illusion of power as their empire crumbled around them. But deep down, they knew the truth. They had already lost. Entire sectors were in chaos. Supply lines were shattered. Their strongest fleets were reduced to drifting wreckage. The Ellerin swarm was consuming their outer worlds, while humanity, silent, invisible, merciless, continued its methodical destruction. The Council had ruled through fear for generations. Yet now, they were the ones who feared the dark. Then, the final message came. Every screen across the galaxy flickered at once. Every communication channel, every device, every broadcast fell under their control. And for the first time, the Council saw the face of their executioner. It was not a politician, not a king, not a diplomat, not a conqueror. It was a soldier, scarred, worn, but unbroken, a remnant of the species they had tried to erase. The voice was calm, colder than the void itself. You believed we were gone. You believed your betrayal had made you safe. But now you understand. You never destroyed us. You only created something you cannot stop. This is your last warning. Flee. The transmission ended. And then the final strike began. The last of the Council's fleets, what remained of their mighty armadas, scrambled to defend their capital world. They fired blind into the void, desperate to hit an enemy they could not see. It did not matter. Humanity's warships emerged from the darkness, no longer ghosts but reapers. Their weapons were beyond anything the Council had ever known, shattering planetary defenses in seconds, breaking apart dreadnoughts as if they were nothing more than paper. There was no battle. There was no resistance. Only annihilation. One by one, the Council's greatest fortresses fell. Their leaders, once the most powerful beings in the galaxy, tried to run. Some fled into deep space, hoping to escape justice. They were found. Some begged for mercy. They were silenced. By the end of the day, the Council was gone. Not conquered, not imprisoned. Gone. The Swarm, seeing the chaos, recoiled. For the first time in its existence, it hesitated. It had fought humans before. It had survived humanity's weapons once. But now it saw something different, something terrifying. It turned its attention elsewhere, seeking easier prey. The galaxy was silent. The war was over. But humanity did not claim the throne. They did not raise banners, did not demand submission. They did not need to. Their message had been heard. Their warning had been understood. A new order had begun. Not through control, not through manipulation, but through the unshakable truth that now echoed across every world. Humanity was no longer a species to be ignored, no longer a power to be betrayed. They were the final consequence. The reckoning in the dark, and in every whispered legend, in every fearful tale, the same words would always remain. They were betrayed. They survived. And now they rule.